Imagine being able to pick up the phone and call the future version of you. Imagine being able to immediately access and have a conversation with the version of yourself that already is living your absolute dream life, that has already manifested the business, the career, the lifestyle, the income, the appearance, the relationship that you desire, whatever you are currently longing for most. And imagine in this conversation being able to get answers on how they accomplished these things, being able to receive that advice and reassurance from this futuristic timeline where you are living out the reality of those desires. Well, with this simple but powerful manifesting technique, you can do just that, but in a sort of energetic way. You can actually mimic this ability to call into your future. But even though it may seem like you are only mimicking this process of calling your future self, you may be surprised to find that doing this sort of manifesting technique, you can actually pull forth valuable pieces of advice and information and guidance from the part of your own subconscious or your own soul that is already connected to that future timeline where you are living the life of your dreams. This can not only be a powerful way to actually pull in advice, guidance, and information to help you align with that higher timeline, but actually in the process of doing this technique, you will immediately and instantly shift your energy in such a powerful way that I guarantee within just a few weeks of doing this regularly, you would start to see very profound shifts in your day-to-day life, evidence that you are beginning to align more with that new reality. This technique, as far as I know, I'm not sure if it already exists. I hadn't really looked into it, but it's something that I came up with for myself, regardless of whether or not it already exists in some form. And I actually wanted to share a little bit of brief backstory of how I landed on this. So many, many years ago, I had the dream of starting my own app, and I really wanted to create an app that would provide some kind of value for people looking to manifest their dreams and to better themselves in their life. And yet my physical reality was very much the opposite. I was actually in school at the time, taking classes for something that was very out of alignment with me, but very logical, something that made logical sense that I was proud of because it did make such logical sense. It was a career path that would bring a lot of income, but to me, it felt like it was sucking the life and soul out of me. So that's kind of the pathway I was on. This was also a time in my life when I was going through a dark night of the soul, and I was exploring a lot of information on manifesting and spirituality, but feeling really, really in the depths of loneliness and depression. And so when I was walking to my classes, I used to have to walk to get there because I didn't have a car. And I remember that on the way during those walks, I had this idea to pick up my phone, actually hold it to my ear, and pretend as though I was having a call with my app team, with people who were working on my app, who were supporting my success and helping me to improve this app. Now, keep in mind, not only was this app entirely non-existent, but I didn't even have an idea for an app yet. I just really knew that I wanted to do this, that I wanted to make one. And so in these calls, even though there was no one literally on the other end of the line, and I probably looked like a crazy person, I could feel myself working my way into this excitement. I was embodying this character of someone who already had this successful app that I was really excited about, and even a team that I was working with to make it a reality. And I just had the realization in this past year, as you guys know who have been following the channel, I've created and launched my now app, Sound and Soulful, in both app stores, the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. And I just had this random realization that I used to do this, that I used to have these fake phone calls with this future reality, where it kind of allowed me in a natural way to begin embodying this persona of a person who had already manifested this thing that I so desperately desired to manifest. So I wanted to share this technique with all of you because I saw so much success with it. And to be honest with you, it's not something I did that frequently. I think it's really only an exercise that I probably did maybe a handful of times, but I really do believe that something about putting that energy out there into the universe has played a role in now allowing me to have manifested the app that I've now created, because now I'm having these same kinds of phone calls with my app development team that I used to envision having during these walks that seemed so impossible at the time. So I wanted to share with you how to go about doing this. And the beautiful thing about this technique is it's very adaptable to your personal goals, to what feels natural to you. And that's actually one of the main keys here, is making it as natural for yourself as possible, and how you would typically go about having a phone call or speaking to someone on the other end of the phone. So I'm going to get into all of that. But first, if you are new, welcome. My name is Infinity, and this is Magnetize Yourself, where we talk about life, love, spirituality, and of course, the law of attraction. So let's talk about how to make phone calls to your future self, or phone calls to your future, because again, there are a lot of ways to kind of adapt this technique to what works for you. And like I said, this is really something that you don't necessarily have to do regularly. In fact, sort of like when you do a scripting exercise, when you're writing out how it's going to feel in a certain reality once you've manifested your goals, in some cases, this actually could be the most effective if you just do this once or a handful of times, or just periodically, whenever you're feeling inspired to do it. And you may look back, as I have several years down the road, at something that you're personally trying to manifest right now. And you may be able to reflect and see how those phone calls you have now with this future version of yourself actually become your future. So I would love to hear from you in the comments what you would like to use this technique for, if you have something in mind that you'd like to manifest or create, because really typing that out in the comments is sort of a commitment to yourself. It locks it in for you in a stronger way energetically, so that you will remember this technique more strongly and maybe implement it whenever you're feeling inspired to do it. So really, it's quite simple. Again, you're basically picking up the phone, holding it to your ear as though you're on the phone. So you're mimicking those actions to yourself. And then you begin to have a conversation with someone from a future timeline where you are already living the manifestation of what you desire, or with your own future version of self. So let's start by saying what this would look like if you were talking to your future version of self. So there are different ways to go about this, but one is through more so the listening technique. So you can really do this from the angle of listening, or the angle of more so talking in a scripting kind of way. And I'll get into how to do either. You can try both of them out and see what works best for you. Again, the key is to make this as natural as possible, even though it's going to feel a little unnatural at first. And also, as with any manifestation technique, I feel there's something to be said for not being afraid to look or feel a little bit delusional. Because there has been a lot of trending kind of viral memes and things going around online about how being delusional is the solution to all your problems, that if you're delusional, you can manifest. But to be honest, there actually is a lot of truth to that. When you allow yourself to be delusional in the sense that you are willing to deny your current reality and believe in the possibility of an entirely new reality that doesn't yet exist, that is pretty much the core foundation of all manifestation. So you have to be willing to look a little bit silly to yourself when you do this. I really recommend doing this alone, or if you do it out in public, again, hold the phone to your ear so no one knows that there's not actually someone on the other end of the phone. But basically, you're going to call into your future. And so, for example, if you are trying to manifest a relationship, a romantic relationship, I would actually really recommend calling your future partner and talking to them as though this is your person. This is the one you're deeply in love with. You can tell them anything. You feel so safe with them. You feel so supported by them. Again, you're so deeply in love with them. And just talking to your future partner on the phone, even though in a literal sense, there's no one on the other end of the line. The other day, I actually read a post about someone doing this, but not with a phone, where they actually, I believe it was in the Neville Goddard Reddit thread, the Neville Goddard Reddit community. Sorry, I'm not too familiar with all the different terms on Reddit, but it was in the community there where someone was talking about how they always used to have these fake conversations with their fake boyfriend. So when they were lying, falling asleep at night, they would hold their pillow and pretend it was their future boyfriend, and they would talk to it as though it was their boyfriend. Again, I told you that you have to be willing to look kind of silly in these techniques, but they really do work to align you with that energy. And I believe she even said she would have like fake conversations during the day, even when she was driving in the car and maybe even on the phone. I don't remember if the post actually mentioned that. But you could use this with the phone call technique, which, by the way, I should finish the story. She did manifest that relationship, of course, that felt and looked and sounded exactly like those calls and those conversations that she would have with this fake boyfriend, except in a real form, obviously, that actually manifested in her life. So this is just one example of the potential success of this technique, really being able to use the energy of your words, the vibration of your words, to talk yourself into something. And in some ways, I feel this technique can be more effective than affirmations because it can feel more natural. Affirmations, of course, are very popular because they do work very well over time if you're consistent with them. But I feel the beauty of this technique is it feels much more natural than saying an affirmation aloud. It actually works a bit more with the subconscious because you're almost tricking your subconscious into believing you already have achieved whatever it is that you want because you're talking about it, because you're having this natural conversation about it. Okay, so if you were trying to manifest a relationship, you could use the same technique that we see in the example I mentioned of the girl manifesting her boyfriend, except on the phone. So you could pretend that you're having these phone calls, these in-depth, loving conversations with the person that you are trying to manifest, either the specific person or just the general idea of the relationship. Now, if you're trying to manifest something that's more related to business or to career, you could try to have a phone call where you are talking about all of the amazing things that have been happening with your business. And I would recommend pretending that someone is on the other end of the line, like a really good friend or a family member or someone that you really know is in your corner and would be so excited for you. And you talk to that person as though you're telling them, you know, earned this amount of money in this month from my business, and I saw this kind of success, and I'm so excited about this that's happening in my business. And again, you may not even have that business. It might be something that you're manifesting, but you can talk about these successes and put as much real emotion into it as you can. Make it as natural and genuine, actually feeling those emotions in that fake conversation like you would if those things had actually manifested. Now, again, you can use this for literally anything that you're trying to manifest in your life. So you can take this to apply however it works for you. But one other angle to approach this from, rather than speaking as that future version of you, like that's having that phone call in the future where you're talking about things as though they've already happened, you could also have a phone call with the future version of yourself where you're asking questions and then pausing to kind of listen and see what your mind summons up internally as responses to those questions while you're on the phone with your higher self. I know this sounds kind of complicated, but it could be really powerful because essentially this is more of a sort of channeling exercise where you are channeling potential advice, guidance, and information from that future timeline that could actually guide you into manifesting those things in this timeline. So what you could do in this scenario is call as though you're actually just you, this current version of you, but as though the person that you're ringing on the phone is that future version of yourself. It's your higher self or your future self that has already manifested these things. And what you can do is actually ask this version of yourself questions. So you could say, how did you do it? How did you manifest that business? Or how did you do XYZ? Or do you have any advice for me? And then leave pauses and maybe even get out a notebook for this exercise and write down whatever comes to mind as a natural response to that question. It's almost as though you are doing this exercise internally where you're tapping into that future energy and then channeling information from that could actually act as guidance for you in the present. So I really want to talk a bit about how this technique works. But first, I also want to say that you can utilize subliminals that I've created to really help you in this process. It may be really helpful to meditate with subliminals prior to doing this, just so you're in a really clear, grounded, and stable place, but also subliminals work directly with the subconscious mind because they contain affirmations that are capable of bypassing the conscious filter of the mind and making deeper, more lasting impressions on the subconscious. So these are amazing tools for deeply reprogramming your subconscious mind and magnetizing your energy for what you desire. I personally also started using subliminals several years ago in my own journey. I saw really profound results from them, and I still use them every single day because I do tend to see the most results from subliminals as opposed to any other technique on its own. So I've now created, of course, as I mentioned earlier, my subliminals app, Sound and Soulful. On this app, I have over 130 subliminals for love, relationships, career, mindset, energy clearing, and so much more. They're all available in 10 different background sound options, and you can even create your own custom private playlists in the app. So specifically for this video, you could select subliminals from the app that resonate with what you're trying to manifest in your life, but I also really recommend my subliminal called Parallel Reality Shifting, because this is really designed to help you shift into that desired reality, into that higher timeline that you are trying to align with using this phone call with your higher self technique. So again, the link to download the Sound and Soulful app and get started using subliminals to reprogram your subconscious mind and manifest your desires is in the pinned comment and description box underneath this video. Okay, so let's talk about the so-called kind of science or the mechanics behind why this works. So One reason that this works, of course, is simply because it's sort of similar to using affirmations or doing a scripting exercise where you're kind of trying to embody the image or the visualization of what you desire, except it's happening in a much more natural way. And that naturalness is the key, because when you can truly make something feel effortless to you, when you make it feel natural to you to be confident, to be successful, to have the things you desire, those things then manifest much more quickly into your reality, because your subconscious mind accepts what is true when you can make it feel natural, when you make that new truth feel normal to you. Secondly, of course, this is really using the power of your imagination, and the imagination is activating the reticular activating system, which we've discussed a lot recently in these podcast videos, which is the filter for your mind that's naturally filtering out information that it finds to be important and then transmitting that to you in the form of how you're perceiving your reality. So when you really begin to imagine through these phone calls that you are living in this futuristic version of your life, you actually begin to establish a new filter in your mind that begins to see more opportunities that are in alignment with those dreams or goals. This also works with really allowing you to use your voice energy to mold your reality. So the voice actually carries a very strong frequency and energy. And there is that quote that the words we speak become the house we live in. So the more that you can create and cultivate more positive conversation, especially out loud in this kind of phone call style that feels natural, the more you can do this, the more it actually begins to shift your inner dialogue, the way you think internally. And once your internal dialogue is fully aligned with the version of you that you are manifesting, that manifested version of you will become your reality. So I really hope this video was helpful. I hope that this technique works to help you manifest something that you are desiring in your life. Again, I would love to hear what you think in the comments, as well as any other ideas that you might have personally. If my energy connects with you, then I invite you to subscribe to the channel, join our beautiful community of like-minded, conscious, creative beings here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram at Magnetize Yourself, where I post more inspiration and information. Of course, if you do want to utilize these subliminals I've created to help you really magnetize your energy for your desires in life, then the link to download my Subliminals app is in the pinned comment and description box underneath the video. Otherwise, I am sending you all huge amounts of love and light energy. Have an amazing remainder of your day, and I will connect with you here again in the next video.